One of the things I want you to know about is that we, in order to be helpful, as we started, we had a Facebook kind of public page that you would see and know what we're doing, and that's been one of our key kind of tools to use. But also we kind of had a Facebook group. It was a closed group where we kind of used that as things were getting started, but we kept it. And so it's been confusing. And so if you want to see what we're doing online, you don't always know what page to go on. And so what we're going to do, I'll make an announcement again online, but we won't have that closed group anymore. Just the one page. So when you find Go Church stuff, it'll be on that page and you won't be as confused. If you have questions about that, let me know. But I just want to clarify that for you. Guys, I am excited about the sermon today, but also really nervous because I've been kind of giving it a tag every week that I want to give you a good reason to follow Jesus. But I'll be honest with you, if you follow Jesus for you, this week is not going to be a helpful tool. If this is about what you want, then this sermon will not be good for your life. This text, as many of them do, continue to redefine what it means to follow Jesus. There's a lot of stuff in here that I don't completely understand, and so have mercy with me as we kind of try and navigate what it means to follow someone that is far superior to us. And so I'm super excited about this text. And this is Mark chapter 8, verses 27 through, I think 32 is where I'm going to be. And this is a powerful moment where Peter and the disciples are with Jesus and they're having this pretty meaningful conversation. The text is normal. Will be on the screen if you want to use the Bible that you bring with you or your phone, whatever you do to kind of keep notes and keep tabs on what God's doing. That's a great way to do it, but it will also be on the screen. So I'm going to jump right into this because I got a lot to talk about today. So this is Mark chapter 8, starting in verse 27. Jesus and his disciples went into the village around Caesarea Philippi. On the way, he asked them, and I'll already stop right there. That place is where, like, the temple for Augustus Caesar was built, which Jesus kind of, I think, uses that for a reason later. So remember that kind of mental note that a king's palace was built in that place. On the way, he asked them, "Who do people say that I am?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others one of the prophets. But what about you?" he asked. "Well, who do you say that I am?" Go to the next one. Peter answered, "You are the Messiah." Jesus warned them not to tell anyone about this, which is interesting. He began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed after 3 days and rise again. He spoke plainly about this. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter. He said, "Get behind me, Satan." He said, "You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Then he called the crowds along with him, and the disciples said, "You'll just stop right there if you don't mind." Peter rebukes Jesus. That was one of the first things that got my attention. And I think rightfully so. Again, Peter had been with Jesus for a long time. At least a year of ministry had happened where they were living life together. And so Jesus on this great hill where again, there's royalty just kind of is in the air. And Jesus says, "Hey, listen, I'm going to suffer, and 3 days I'm going to die." And so Peter's like, "No, like this, there's no way." And I think I get where he's coming from, to have an intimate relationship with Jesus, to be watching him cast out demons and perform these miracles and do all these wonderful things for people. I think this is a protective kind of brotherly love to be like, "Hey, there's no way this could happen for you. This is unacceptable. You're so special to me. You're special to so many people. How dare you say that you would die? Like, that is ridiculous." So I get where he's coming from. But I think even deeper, there's this misunderstanding that Peter has that I fall into, and I think we fall into all the time. Peter saw Jesus do things a certain way and thought, there's no way that you would go that way. That how would that make any sense that you would choose to do life like that? That you would what? You would suffer? Like, I saw you feed 5,000 people, and you're telling me that this is what's going to happen for you? There's no way. And so Peter, again, being with Jesus for some time, draws this conclusion that I know where this is going. There's no way it could go that way, and so this is unacceptable to me. And Jesus has a very harsh rebuke back to him. And Peter is not the only one. He is not the only one that sometimes misunderstands what Jesus is here to do. And I relate, and I think you might as well, because so far in this book, and actually this text specifically, this question that Peter has for Jesus, this is kind of like a halfway mark in the book of Mark. This is kind of right in the middle, and you're going to see this transition that begins to happen that's pretty powerful. But so far, we see this version of Jesus that a lot of people just like to bookend and make him only this. He's this kind of like foreign superhero who can heal and he can feed and do all these great things for all these great people. And so that's a version of Jesus that most people like the best. But there's this whole other side of him that we're going to get to know. And for some of us, it's not a good reason to follow him. It changes some things about the way we think about him, about the way you think about you. And so what Peter thought, what we thought, was that Jesus was going to overthrow the Roman world and he was going to rule as a king with great might and power and do things in the way that they thought it was going to happen. But when he said these things about his own death and his own suffering, how does that make any sense? Why would a king who uses power and authority be subject to it? Why would it make any sense for this to be the route that Jesus is predicting that he's going to go? And so we, like Peter, wrestle with this idea. And we still do, but he makes it a lot more difficult and a lot more clear all at the same time as he sees kind of what this does to the disciples and what this does to Peter, and this uncomfortable, like, well, wait a minute, you're telling me you're going to do things different? That we're not supposed to protect you and fight for you? And what are you trying to say? And so the next words I want to read, just bear with me. This takes a lot to digest this. Jesus then says to him, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul?" Again, through verse 36. And you can leave that up there for a little bit. I've been a Christian for a couple years now, and I still wrestle so much with this idea. You, if you choose to follow Jesus, are called to deny yourself. The verdict is out on how to do that right. Right? Like, I don't know exactly how to do that best. How do you deny your life so that you gain it back? And what does this actually look like? And so again, he's bringing this teaching to them and to me and to you that I don't want to take lightly. And I still think I'm trying to understand all that means. I know that I see some wisdom in it. I've already been privy to that, where I've seen that if in life, if we choose to embrace the trials, we grow from it, right? If we choose to ask God, what you're trying to teach me in the middle of my pain, we get great lessons from it that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Like, I see some of the wisdom, a little bit. I don't completely understand still how this is true and how this works. Because for the disciples that heard this, and the people in the context, they received this and something happened a little bit different for them. And let me explain what I mean by that. They heard Jesus say this, and then later, as we know, the story goes, Jesus did give his life, and so they saw that Jesus was going to do things in a very different way. And so they said, well, Jesus said that if we're going to be his disciples, that we have to follow in suit, and Jesus went to a cross and died, so I suppose maybe that's what it means to be a Christian. And so the early followers of Jesus, they were willing to face that. And so history shows us that through Nero and a couple other Roman individuals, they decided to crucify, to torture, to do whatever they could to persecute Christians. And Christians just thought, well, Jesus said this was going to happen. And so they literally lost their life so that they could gain it. And so for them, they actually had to deal with the fact that when Jesus said, follow me, as I take my cross, and don't be surprised as you take your own as well, they were completely okay with the fact that that meant suffering and pain and death was potentially in their future. But it only makes Jesus' words more powerful, because one of the strongest arguments for your faith is the fact that this happened, that these group of people that followed Jesus were willing to go to this audacious death that actually spurred on a nation to follow Jesus and blew up the name of the church. And so people began to follow Jesus and grows because of the sacrifice and because of the fact that Jesus is who he says he was. And so people had come to follow him because they saw that this was not some kind of fairy tale, but this was real. Why would all these Christians choose to die if Jesus wasn't who he says he was? And so this ended up being a very strong part of their testimony, almost as if he knew what he was talking about. That if they would lose their life, if they would deny themselves and pick up their cross, that great meaning and significance would come for their testimony for everyone else in the world to come. But that's clearly not us. I'm not going to assume that it will not ever be an option for you and for me, but as I thought this through, do you think we're going to wrestle with potentially having our lives in jeopardy for the sake of following Christ? In our nation, I don't know that that will be an issue for us. I think it's a little bit more subtle. I think it's a little bit different. And so what this means to follow Jesus and to lose your life is something a little bit different. And here's what I see. They were willing, the disciples, the 12, many more that followed him, that they would follow him no matter what came their way. And so I can think about it like that. Would you choose to follow Jesus if all your best days are behind you? What if it gets no better in your life? I got to be honest with you, when I think about the way our nation is moving, and I think what people see of Christianity, there's kind of this polarizing view of what we are. And so you're going to see as time goes on who really is in this for Jesus and who is in it just for the fun of the club. Right? We're going to notice that, I think, as the years go by. Because it will be less and less in your favor to declare you're a Christian. And so you're going to have to decide if that's worth it to you or not. Again, I don't know that your life's going to be threatened because you make that decision, but you will have other consequences to pay. But again, just to kind of play out this scenario, if you knew that you would never, that your best days are behind you, they will only get worse from here, would you still follow Jesus? I thought about it like this, that I fantasize about the huge mansion and all these great material wealth like a lot of people do. And I'm pretty sure, unless I'm just really, really good with my money, which I wish I was, that's just not going to be in my future. But I think, if I understand Jesus right, it will be in glory. Right? I'm not going to see it on this side of heaven. But I'm achieving for me a glory that outweighs all of that in my obedience to him. So I might not ever see some great things that I want to have luxury in my life, but I'm going to get that times 10 if I stay obedient. But would I still choose to follow him even if the rest of the days that I live are going to be difficult? That's something I got to wrestle with. I got to kind of comprehend if denying myself and following even in the difficult moments, if that's going to be worth my time. And again, I don't fully understand what it means for us to deny ourselves. We mention it sometimes, and we talk about, I should be more humble, and so I'll deny myself in this moment to lift up another person, and maybe I'll deny myself by doing this thing, and it's a work in progress. In fact, if you've got it figured out, man, by all means let me know, but I'm trying to figure out how best to do this, because if I choose to follow Jesus for my own interest, then this is not a good reason. If you're a Christian because Jesus of the first half of the book of Mark is going to take away all the pain and give you all these miracles and do these things, if it's just for your benefit, then this is probably where you want to get off the train. If you're following Jesus because it makes you better, then here's where he's going to redefine it, as he did for the disciples. As he changed the game and said, hey, wait a minute. Don't think I'm doing all this so that you're going to live a better life. I'm in this for a bigger picture than that. And so you're going to have to choose. If you're in it for your own glory, if you're in it for your own possession and happiness, or you're looking at something perhaps a little bit deeper, that he's going to spend the second half of the book showing us what this deeper meaning and purpose of following Jesus is. So again, if this is not something that you're following Jesus for your own benefit, this isn't going to be helpful for you. But if it's for something else, maybe it will. One of the lessons that's helped me over the years to comprehend what it means to truly deny yourself, to lose your life so that you would gain it. One of the things that has stood out to me the most happened a couple years back from a book I read, Erwin McManus, called The Barbarian Way. He talks about this text I want to read you that helped me kind of put some context on what it means to deny myself and to really, really, truly follow Jesus and lose my life so that I would gain it. And I'll kind of tell you the story as I go through, but would you jump over to Matthew? I have one there at the end. This is John the Baptist, when John the Baptist was in prison, he heard about the deeds of the Messiah, and he sent his disciples, John the Baptist had disciples, to ask Jesus, are you the one that has come, and should we expect someone else? Jesus replies to John the Baptist, go back and report to John, or to the disciples to go tell John, go report to him what you hear and what you see. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is being proclaimed to the poor. And this is key. There's one more. Or maybe there isn't. There we go. Blessed is anyone who does not stumble on account of me. And at first, maybe even still, like, what does Jesus mean when he says that? Jesus, again, is having this conversation with John the Baptist's disciples to go back and tell John that this is what I want you to know. And I just want you to hang on that because I think there's a lot going on in the story here. Now, we've been working through the book of Mark, and we kind of jumped past an interesting moment in chapter 6 of Mark where John the Baptist is in prison. And this catches up with this text right here, but he's in prison for preaching the gospel, for doing what he was supposed to be doing. And in that context, he is in a kind of a political game where this girl wants a reward, and so she asks for John the Baptist to be beheaded. And he is. And in chapter 6 of Mark, we kind of hear the end of John's story that he's killed, and that's how it ends. But this ties in and just continues to confuse me to great lengths. That why does it happen that a Christian, and a Christian of Christians, if I might add, John the Baptist doing all the things that we think we ought to be doing, was living out his life, doing what he was supposed to do, preaching the gospel, and he finds himself in prison and sends his disciples to go talk to Jesus. And I'm assuming probably because he knew a good part of the first half of the book of Mark. Well, Jesus can feed all these people. He can do whatever he wants. Surely he can get me out of prison. He can take care of me and do whatever I need because I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. But that's how Jesus responds. He says, listen, the good news is being preached. The blind are receiving their sight. The leprosy has been cured. And the good news is being preached. And I want you to know that. But don't stumble on account of me. And that's all he hears. And then he's beheaded in prison. Like, I thought if you choose to follow Jesus, that when you go through difficult times, that when you suffer and you need Jesus to help you, that he's going to come save the day. But he says this to him. And so again, the question I ask now, and especially then years ago when I first read this, is why? Like, why on earth would this be? And so Jesus is saying these words, man, I hope you don't fall away on account of me. I think he's making this very clear case that he shows in our text this morning out of Mark chapter 8 and a little bit into 9, is that if you assumed that I was going to be here to save you from your suffering, that's not how this is going to work. Because, and here's the idea that gives me some application for how to deny myself. And I've heard it said a couple different ways, but the constant struggle, and what I want you to kind of think about, is I think Jesus wants us to choose between comfort and significance all the time, and so many different ways. And that would be the tension. That would be kind of the application I want you to think about. And I'll tell you what, I've seen this tension as a parent. If there's any way other than the gospel of Jesus where I've tried to comprehend what it means to deny myself, it would be in raising a pile of kids, right? Like you learn to kind of, okay, like it's not about me anymore, and how can I pour into my kids? And so I'm still learning how to do that. But I see this moment where I can choose comfort over significance. And it was actually in a picture from a couple years ago, but there are moments where my kids want my attention, and whatever the reason, whatever's going on, and I've got my phone in front of me. And the picture goes that I could continue to hold onto my phone and be comfortable and do what I want because I just need my time. I need to refill a little bit. And then I miss out on that moment with them. And then when they get older and I want to hang out with my kids, they're going to have their phone in front of their face. And I'm going to be like, man, I missed my opportunity. And so every day with my kids, when they get up way too early and want to play with me, I have to think about, do I want my comfort right now or do I want significance with the relationships that matter? And then I got to remember when they're wanting to play, when I'm completely drained of energy, do I want comfort right now? Or do I want something significant because I know my relationship with my kids matters? And so for me, that kind of tension, that helps answer this question for me for many years now on how do you deny yourself? Because again, I don't think it's going to be your life that gets threatened. But I do think luxury is coming for you. I do think comfort is trying to keep you hidden and keep you away from doing what you're supposed to do. I think you've got to be very careful about what it means to live a life of comfort versus a life of significance. So as a Christian, there are moments all the time where I say, you know what, God, I could choose something comfortable, or I could do something meaningful. And again, for John the Baptist, I think if there's meaning to this text, it would be that. Hey, listen, John, I didn't do this so that you would be safe, so that you would be comforted. I did this because I'm giving you significance, because you play a role in my kingdom, and it might not be what you want, but your legacy will go on because of your faithfulness. To those early Christians that literally did give their life for Jesus, they didn't choose the path of comfort, but they chose the path of significance to do something bigger than themselves. And so for me, and I think for you, the tension and the battle that you're going to be in every single day, if you choose to follow Jesus, is to ask yourself that question. Are you going to choose comfort, or are you going to choose significance? Are you going to look at opportunities? God, what are you trying to show me that you want me to do with my life right now? This path will probably lead to more comfort, and so, man, I got to be careful of that, because if I get comfortable, I can get complacent. If I get complacent, I start getting to a place where I am no good for anybody. This is just my opinion, but I'm convinced that the most miserable people in the world have a very comfortable couch. I think it's very easy to be overwhelmed by pain and have great luxuries around you. I think the world will show me, if I look at the celebrities the world wants me to adore, I see a lot of comfort and luxury, but I see so much brokenness that none of that seems attractive to me. But if I'm being honest with myself, that also means the opposite's true. That if I choose significance and follow Jesus where he leads me, do not be surprised if it doesn't get any easier. That I'm going to choose that even when I'm tired, even when I don't have the energy to do it, but that's where the meaning comes in. And so Jesus was willing to go to the cross and do what he did for me. And this wasn't just an example of what love looks like that you get to benefit from. It was the path you're supposed to follow. So again, I'm sorry, but if you wanted to follow Jesus for your own interest, this is not going to help you. But if you want to follow Jesus because you know that you're significant in his kingdom, that he gives you purpose and meaning, and that all you could do with your life is bring him glory, then this should be compelling. But you will have to choose that, and sometimes every single day. You'll have to make a decision if you want to embrace this journey that doesn't mean everything's always going to get better. That means that you've got to remember in the back of your mind, it might not be till glory that you see what had happened. You might embrace suffering, you might deal with persecution in different ways, and there might be that day that you wonder, why is this all happening the way it's happening? But he said, be faithful. He said, follow me, even if it's difficult, no matter what's going to come your way. And rest assured, if you stay faithful, there is more to your story on the other side of heaven. But sometimes that can be tough. Let's just be honest. And so with that being said, how do you deny yourself? How do you lose your life so that you gain it? That's the best I've got. And I continue to wrestle with that lesson, that idea for me. And so every day, and in fact, that's why I'm here as a pastor, as a church planter, is I said, you know what? I could be comfortable. I could stay with what I was doing, and I think I would not have grown as much because I would have put myself in a very easy position in life. And so I needed to step out and pursue something that was difficult, because God makes us better in the middle of that. And so I challenge you, for whatever it looks like for you to deny yourself, to pick up your cross and follow Jesus. I think what it looks like is every day ask yourself, man, what's the comfortable option and what's the significant one? How does this really matter, big picture? Because at the end of the day, if you follow Jesus for you, this isn't going to be good. But if you understand that your life is worth more than your lungs and the air that you breathe, that you're part of a bigger story, if you know that life is about something more than you, then this is a good reason to say yes. And again, he knew that people would stumble because of this. He knew that this would be an easy place to get off the train and say, you know what, maybe this is just too much. And I think some people will. You know what, I'll follow Jesus if he's my genie in a bottle that'll fix whatever problem I have. But if it means that I have to surrender, that I have to deny myself and give up, then I don't know. And so I don't ever want to be someone that manipulates people into following Jesus. So if you think that everything is going to get easier and better for you, and that if you sign up and you get baptized and you do whatever you think you're supposed to do, that somehow then things are just easy, that's not true. They will be better. There will be meaning, and God will grow you in the middle of things that you're not even prepared to comprehend. And I love him for it. And so this second half of the book, this second half of Jesus' life, it's going to get more intense. Because you and I, as the disciples, will learn this Jesus is not who I thought he was. He's got things to challenge in your life that you maybe just kind of wanted to move aside because there's other more fun stuff to talk about. But don't miss that Jesus wants you to follow him in the same path that he walked down. That you would walk the same steps that he walked. And I think about those early disciples who did give their life, who were willing to be persecuted, who were willing to be killed in some really audacious and crazy ways. And one of my favorite things is that history would show us that even as threatening and as intimidating as the Roman world was when they faced persecution, and they would have thought, as many probably did in that moment, that I don't know about this whole Jesus thing and this Christianity thing because they seem so big and they just seem so loud and this is so intimidating to me. I don't know if this is going to work. And they submitted anyway, and they were faithful to the very end. And if you go to those same places today to look where all these people have been killed for their faith, you don't see great Roman rule anymore. In fact, most of that has crumbled. But you know what you do see in all those places where all this persecution of the early church happened? You'll see crosses all over the place. Because Jesus knew maybe in your lifetime, in your eyes, you don't see what this is achieving. You're not going to know all that this is going to mean for you. But those people had no idea that thousands of years later, preachers would be talking about their example because they had significance in the kingdom. You might not ever know what your story does for other people, but don't miss the fact that when Jesus said, my church will never fail, and you're a part of it, he will use your significance in his kingdom. So choose to follow that. And I challenge you to continue down that path, even though it will be more difficult for you. Because he has good things in store for his kids, and he has great hope beyond what we can comprehend. And so I pray you choose the hard path. Pray you choose significance over comfort, and see what that looks like for you every single day. Because that's the best I got. And if you know how to do that better, let's talk more, because this is a process. This is a journey, and we're on it together. I want to pray for you. We had an awesome song to kind of finish, and just want you to remember to think about this is a reason to follow Jesus. And not everybody's going to like it. But this is what he said to do. And so what does it mean for you to choose significance over comfort? All right, let me pray and we'll get to it. I love you so much. Thank you for your patience with me. Thank you for this world-changing things that you teach about and that you're so patient with us to try and figure out how to do it. I'm sorry for all the times I, like Peter, assumed you meant something else, or I rationalized what I think I should do about it instead. I pray, please, Father God, you would help us to actually learn to deny ourselves, to make life about you, not ourselves. That you would be Lord in our heart, and not just by words, but really that we would live our life for you. Help us to be obedient. Help us to choose a significant path of meaning and of purpose that doesn't always guarantee safety. Help us to continue to follow you no matter what comes our way, because you are worth it. Rain or shine, good or bad, persecution or not, you are the song we're singing till all other songs stop. Because you are the truth and the hope that changed the world. I love you, Father God. Thank you so much for giving us life that we deserve. Giving us hope and a story bigger than we can comprehend, God. We love you. We thank you so much, Father. You're the best. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen.